I'm Abby Bolton. I'm an IFBB Fitness Pro. So I got my pro card back in 2019 at North American Championships. And then from there, I didn't do my pro debut until 2021. So kind of after COVID, I utilized that time a little bit and stepped on stage after things calmed down. I've done 5 pro shows since then. So I did the Toronto Pro twice. I did the Vancouver Pro, which was my first pro win, which qualified me to the Olympia 2022. And then I also did the Ben Weider as well, kind of leading up to the Olympia, and then stepped on the Olympia stage. But outside of bodybuilding, I'm a full-time chiropractic student. I'm also undergoing my master's in anatomy at the same time. So both are kind of share similarities with bodybuilding. They kind of go hand in hand. So I have love for both of them. And that's kind of a little brief snippet about me.
Anatomy has always been so fascinating to me because of like the potential of the human body and what we can see. You can see that there's muscles and bones and tendons, and you can understand that there's like cells and how those work. But from like a chiropractic perspective, and even just from like a performance perspective, a bodybuilding perspective, you can see those things, but then they can sometimes surprise you too.
That's one of the reasons why I love it so much. Like, especially so for the master's anatomy program, we had to take a gross anatomy class for chiropractic, but then we go a little bit more in depth with the masters of anatomy. So like we're in a cadaver lab, like we're dissecting, we're seeing all the muscle attachments, the nerves, like the network of nerves and blood vessel, like just every little detail you could think of. And the human body is so complex. It's so fascinating. So to be able to like actually see it firsthand, and then now I can kind of visualize for myself for training, okay, this muscle attaches here. Okay, it makes sense. Maybe if I tweak my hand position on like a certain movement, I'll get better activation, better contraction of that muscle. So that's one of the reasons why I love what I'm learning, because I can apply it to my other passion, which is bodybuilding and coaching and helping other athletes develop and reach their potential as well. So I think it's so cool.
What actually led you into the anatomy and chiropractic?
So it's kind of funny how I got into it. So I also did my undergrad in exercise science. So, or we in Canada, we call it kinesiology degree. So I did that. And while I was doing that degree, I actually did a 3-year internship at my university in sport performance. So working with athletes in the sport performance side of things, which I absolutely love. I love coaching. I love being there firsthand in training, the keywords, that sort of thing, helping them any way in that way. But then once I finished my degree, I was like, what do I want to do? Like, I love the performance side of things, but I'm like, I want to be able to help athletes even further, like on the healthcare side of things. So then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, maybe I can do like naturopath or chiropractic. I love the holistic type approach. So getting to the root cause, not just masking symptoms, that sort of thing. So naturopath and chiropractic really stood out to me. Ultimately, I ended up choosing chiropractic. And I've loved it. I think it's definitely the route I want to go. Is it something I want to do full time after? No, I kind of want to blend the sport performance, blend the chiropractic, blend the bodybuilding, helping athletes, and lifestyle individuals as well, just reach their potential and achieve whatever goal they have, whether it's bodybuilding specific, whether it's just an athlete in a different sport, or like I said, lifestyle. So that's kind of how I got there. But originally I was so set on just going more the performance route. That was my route. And then just something clicked in me. I was like, no, I want more. I want to be able to just like attack the approach on best helping an individual from both sides, performance and kind of like the healthcare type area. So that's kind of how I got into it.
When I first actually started the podcast, I talked to a few physical therapists who are also strength conditioning coaches. And to me, it automatically like clicked like, oh, that does make sense, because you probably have like even more in-depth understanding of like how the body is working and why you specifically do or don't want to do things the way, somebody might do them, things like that.
I like a challenge. I like to learn. I wanted to be able to help an athlete as much as I possibly could. So I was satisfied with the sport performance, but I'm always somebody who like, I want more. I want to be able to do more, help more, learn more. So that's kind of, I was like, okay, chiropractic, like that's a doctorate degree. That's tough. That's a lot of work. And I was like, I want to achieve this. I want to achieve that next level just to help an athlete, because it does go so hand in hand, or it can go so hand in hand with sport performance, strength and conditioning, especially when you're dealing with athletes in rehab or anything like that, or just injury prevention to begin with, just keeping the body in a healthy state to prevent injury and that sort of thing. So I want to say it was a little bit of both, little internal, but also I just want to be able to help athletes. And there are a few chiropractor / sport performance individuals around who are tackling both. And it is inspiring to see that they have that knowledge from both disciplines, because they do overlap.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.
Do you have any like specific sports, specific athletes that you do want to work with?
Outside of bodybuilding, I work with a lot of curlers, which is something random. But when I was doing my internship at Brock, one of my positions was I was the lead strength and conditioning coach for the curling team at my university. So I worked with them for 3 years. And then after I graduated, a lot of those athletes came back to me just to work on an online basis. So I don't see them in person, but I still program their workouts and whatnot from there. So I think I've worked with probably 4 different Ontario-based curling teams since graduating from my university. So that's a big group that I work with. But I was a gymnast and a track athlete pre-bodybuilding. So those sports are a huge passion of mine, and I'd love to work with those athletes in the future. But all in all, any athlete, any athlete I can help teach something, inspire, or just help them reach peak performance, I am all for it.
Gotcha. And then with your experience in gymnastics and in track, you said, right?
Yeah.
Which one I'm assuming gymnastics was probably first.
Yeah. So I started gymnastics later than most athletes. I was probably 9, I think, when I first started. Did 8 years competitive. I went all the way till grade 12. And then when I graduated grade 12, went away to university. That's when I stopped gymnastics. But the track and gymnastics were actually overlapped. So I got really big into track in grade 9. I took up hurdles. So that was my main event. I did hurdles competitively from grade 9 to 12. And then I actually ran track at my first year of university as well. So 5 years, I would say, like, competitively with the track and field. And then I also did pole vault as well. So it was the hurdles and pole vault were my main events. But gymnastics was the bigger chunk of my life for sure.
How common is the crossover there between those two?
I wouldn't say crazy common, just because they're both pretty demanding, especially the gymnastics. I always found when track season rolled around and I was sprinting more outside, like, I would get crazy shin splints just because I was training on so many different surfaces. Like gymnastics, we're training on like a softer, like we're training on mats, and the floor has like that spring cushion. And then I'm running on like a track, which is more not concrete, but that turf. So, or like that track material. So, it's definitely tougher on the body, and it's a lot to manage, especially with gymnastics. You're training 20 plus hours a week already. So then now you're throwing in track practices like probably a couple days a week. So it gets a lot on the body. So it's hard to tackle both at the same time. Pole vault does have a lot of overlap with gymnasts just because of the core strength. But it's usually something that gymnasts will transition into afterwards.
Because of the demand on your body, was nutrition ever like a part for you in that, or did it become a part for you?
Yeah, I would say kind of midway through high school, I really started to get big into researching nutrition, how to eat for performance. So that's kind of where like things started to switch. I started to try and incorporate more whole foods into my diet, making sure I'm getting enough protein. And I was thankful, like, my gymnastics coaches also kind of instilled that. They would have like a nutritionist come in and speak to us. So at that younger age, I was already kind of getting that correct knowledge, because a lot of times athletes if they're doing it on their own, they might not do it correctly. But I had that correct knowledge and the proper research just to figure out what to eat for performance. So that's kind of, I would say in mid high school, that's when I really started to dive into the nutrition, so it was an easier transition once I got into bodybuilding.
What about strength conditioning? Was that a big emphasis for you?
It wasn't crazy just because with the gymnastics, it was very specific to that sport. So like, yes, we were doing similar exercises you would see in strength conditioning, but it wasn't crazy weightlifting per se. We did a lot of body weight exercises, implementing some weights here and there, but it was more body weight specific. I would say grade 10, I did a fitness class at school. So I started to get a little bit more into the weight training then. But it wasn't until university when I ran track during my first year that I really got into it, because we had a strength and conditioning coach there that worked with us track athletes and all the different sports at the school. So that's when I really started to understand the programming, why the different exercises and that sort of thing.
As far as like each sport, do you feel like that they complemented each other?
I think they did complement decently. Like doing both the track and gymnastics at the same time was definitely a lot for the body, but I was younger then. When you're younger, you can handle a lot more. But they did complement in the sense, I think gymnastics is a phenomenal sport for anybody to start in, like at a young age, just because it does really develop that body awareness, just being able to manipulate your body and that sort of thing. And again, just having that awareness. So the transition into hurdles for me was pretty smooth, because technicality wise, I'm really good at listening to keywords, or if I hear a correction, I know how to make that change pretty quickly. And it would even get to the point where I would be at a hurdle practice and I would be training and I would do something and I already knew, I'm like, this was off before my coach could even say it. Like they were like, you're reading my mind before I even speak, because you get so in tune with your body. So I always tell parents, like, get your kid in gymnastics at a young age, even if they just do it for a couple years during development, then they can transition to any sport and they have that, like those motor skills. There's obviously other sports that have very similar benefits, but gymnastics is one of those that's just so great. Every sport has something different that it can develop. One strength and conditioning coach that I learned from, he always said 4 of like the greatest sports that you can get like your kid into right away or at some point in their life was like gymnastics, some sort of martial art, track and field. So you get that running, and then swimming as well. Those were 4 that he mentioned. But I also think any sport that involves like a ball is also great for coordination wise, because that's one thing I know for myself. I did soccer and whatnot growing up as a kid. I played volleyball in middle school, but not the greatest athlete in those sports, because gymnastics was like my entire life, gymnastics and then track in high school. But I was so fixated on that one sport, because you kind of have to be, but I was kind of missing some of those skills. So like, yeah, I can kick a soccer ball around. Am I great? No.
Whenever you got into college and stuff, did you get that like typical, okay, I'm in college and things are different now, so I'm in like a different routine, and maybe I'm struggling with new routines and new habits and eating junk or anything like that? Like, did that slope ever happen to you?
I would say a little bit, but nothing crazy. So when I went away for my first year of university, so I moved to Ottawa, and then I ended up switching universities and coming back home for second year. I switched degrees. So I started out in biomedical science at Ottawa, switched into kinesiology for my second year. And that's when I started my first show, was in my second year. When I went away to Ottawa, I actually didn't get like the meal plan at school. I did my own groceries, cooked my own food. So that I think was a really good routine that I had established right off the bat. Like I was meal prepping. So it was kind of preparing me for bodybuilding life right then and there. The one thing I did struggle with, was that transition, because I went from gymnastics training 20 plus hours a week, plus the track on top of that, to now, yes, I was still running track at university, but we're practicing 3 to 4 days a week, maybe 1 to 2 weight sessions a week. And my metabolism, like I wasn't eating correct in terms of my metabolism. I kept eating the same as I was a gymnast, and now I'm exercising way less. And so I did put on weight like most people do when they enter university. Even though I was eating healthier, I was in too much of a surplus compared to what I was burning or what my metabolism was used to burning. So that was kind of a learning curve right then and there. And then moving back home that following year, I got with my coach. I think it would have been the July after finishing my first year. So we started my prep at 20 weeks out. And then from there, obviously lost all that weight and kind of learned like how to eat and whatnot correctly for my metabolism and whatnot, and building my metabolism back up so that I can eat more without putting on unnecessary fat and that sort of thing. And bodybuilding definitely teaches you that as you go through different preps, for sure. I know a lot of people struggle with that, and we all go through it. So
how'd you actually get introduced into bodybuilding?
So it's actually a really funny story. So initially, when I finished gymnastics at like end of grade 12, before I moved away to Ottawa for my first year of university, that was when I first joined a gym. So me and my brother joined like first commercial gym, and we loved it. Like we would go and train, like not correctly. We would go and train for like 3 hours a day, like just crazy volume. We would be lifting like 1 RMs all the time, like doing everything wrong, but we loved it. So I fell in love with weight training then and there. And two of the staff members there, who are still in my life, and like I love them to death. One of them was actually in prep for a competition. The other one hasn't competed yet, but they both kind of approached me, and they were like, you should like consider like bodybuilding. Because I would always be doing like crazy gymnastics things too. Didn't know about the fitness division at this point. And I was like, yeah, maybe one day we'll see. Went away to university, came back. When I'd come back and I decided, I'm like, okay, I want to do bodybuilding. Track wasn't satisfying me the way that gymnastics did in terms of like that challenge mentally and physically. So I was like, let's try this whole bodybuilding thing. And I had somebody reach out to me randomly, and I had told nobody at this point that I decided I wanted to do bodybuilding. And she was like, if you're considering competing, like you should reach out to Mindy O'Brien. And I was like, how does she even know that I'm thinking about competing? So it was just weird. So I ended up reaching out to this coach. And she, like, Mindy was my coach for the first 6 years of my journey in bodybuilding. And she's a huge part of my life. And I'm so thankful that I got to learn from her, because she's 12-time Olympian, 10-time Arnold. She's done every division besides women's bodybuilding, and then now wellness as well. So I ended up contacting her, and she was like, you're a gymnast, like you got to do fitness. So then I started researching fitness, watching all the, like every video that I could find on YouTube. And I fell in love with it. I was like, this is like perfect. It's the combination of both gymnastics and weightlifting and like the nutrition aspect. I was like, this is going to be the ultimate like challenge. So we did my first prep. This was back in 2017. Competed December 2017 of that year, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love with the whole journey process, and then seeing everything come together show day as well. Like I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked.
Was there ever a feeling like a sense of, oh man, I'm like in over my head here, or this is way harder than I thought?
I'm trying to think back. I honestly don't think so. Like I think it was something that felt right off the bat. Like, yeah, obviously like the diet portion that was new in terms of like how restricted I was, but I think I was so excited and focused on this goal. Like I did everything perfect. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted to step on stage knowing that I did everything in my power to bring my all-time best. So like I made sure like meals were on point, routine was down, pushing myself in the gym. Like I still look back to that prep, and like that was probably one of my just best preps mentally and physically, because I was just such in a flow state. And I've definitely had preps like that since, but you also get ones from time to time where it doesn't feel the same. It's weird. It's weird how each prep is different. But I still think back to that first one, and that experience was just, I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I pushed myself as hard as I did. And each show you compete in, it's like, I can't believe I could even push myself further than last time. Like I thought that was my limit, and like, holy crap, now we're pushing past even more boundaries. Like that's what I love about this sport. It's like you just develop and grow so much as an individual, mentally, physically, whatever it is, but there's always growth with this sport, which is amazing.
Were you somebody who like really wanted to learn a lot about bodybuilding and a lot about like what's the show going to be like? What's generally the experience of the show day going to be like? Were you somebody who wanted to kind of have like it all not figured out, but like a lot of intel going in, if you will, versus just, focusing on the prep aspect and focusing on that thing and then just getting to the show and seeing how it played out?
Yeah, I would definitely say yes. So I'm huge on like visualization, like picturing everything. And I think my coach Mindy and even my gymnastics coaches before that had a lot to do with that. As a gymnast, we always used to do a lot of journaling, a lot of visualization work, picturing perfect performances, like going in exactly what it feels like, picturing the venue, the different apparatuses, performing each routine perfectly, just picturing the whole event before it even happens, that sort of thing. And my previous coach, Mindy, she was huge on that as well. She would have me visualize like crazy. Every night before I went to bed, I would picture like the venue. I'd research the venue is going to look like, what side of the stage we're going to enter, where I was going to start my routine, like my whole posing routine. Like I would go through everything, every detail in my head, even the smells, like smell of like, not that I knew what the smell of tan smelled like yet, but I'm just trying to picture every little detail that I could, just to prepare myself for that event. Because come show day, it's like, this has already happened. Like I already know how this is playing out. I'm just going to go execute, be in the moment, and let the cards fall into play.
Yeah, obviously you have experience doing a routine with gymnastics, right? But was doing a routine while like in this mental and physical really deficit, was that a new and completely different challenge?
Yes, that's the one thing a lot of people don't understand. Like they see the fitness, and a lot of people don't even really realize like what goes into the fitness routines. But to the average person, they're watching these routines, but they don't, unless you've gone through like a bodybuilding prep and understand what it feels like to be depleted and that sort of thing. It's so different. Like for me personally, the hardest part of prep in general is training my routine. It's because it's so mental. Yes, it's physical too, but it's the mental aspect of like, okay, I got to run through this full routine. Like, I got to get through this. I got to do it. Because you are tired, like you're tired and whatnot. So it's getting your mindset right going in, saying, okay, no, we feel good. We're going to have a great practice. Like, we're going to like nail this routine, get in, get out, do what needs to be done. But yeah, it's a whole different experience because as a gymnast, yeah, you're doing maybe some more difficult skills, but you're eating properly, you're eating good. Like you're eating good, you're drinking lots of water, you're at your peak physical performance with the nutrition and whatnot. But in bodybuilding, you're constantly depleting yourself leading up to a show, and you still have to train this routine. Yes, come show day, I honestly find it easier come show day, even though you are in that depleted state, you might not be drinking as much water. But you have that adrenaline. At least you have that adrenaline, like the work's been done. But it's those weeks leading up where it's like, okay, like we've got busy days, we're tired, and we've got to run through this routine on low food, low energy.
Does muscle soreness or does body maybe just aches in general because of that prep state play a big role in like how you also choose to uh practice your routine?
Yeah, for sure. Like for me personally, I try to strategize when I train my routine. So I'll usually train it twice a week, unless like my body's really not recovering great. We'll obviously adapt, but I'll train it twice a week, and it's never after a leg day. So that's a huge thing. So if I'm going to train, I'll either train it so morning, I'll train routine, and then I might train legs that night. Or I'll do, maybe if I'm training legs, have a rest day. Maybe I'm training like back or whatever, and I'll do it after back. I try not to do it after a leg day. And I also try not to go after like a chest or shoulder workout either, just because there is a lot of push-ups and whatnot. It's fine. I just, when I'm training my routine, people will argue both ways. I like to train it when I feel good because I'm going to get more out of it. So like when you think like strength and conditioning and you're trying to improve your power. So even if I'm just doing skill work, you're trying to improve power. You don't want to be training the power after you've weight trained. I know a lot of fitness competitors will do that. They want to train it in a fatigued state, so that they get used to what it's going to be like on stage. And I think there is an advantage to that. But if you actually want to improve the skill as a whole and improve your plyo push-up or improve your jumps, you want to be doing that when you're fresh, so you can give 100% intensity effort, then maybe go do your weight training after or whatnot. So I try to like to be in that good state so that I can get some of those skills improved. But again, there's so many different things you've got to strategize and attack for the fitness routine, because it's not just the skills that you need to get good. You have to be able to do them in that fatigue state, have the endurance to last the 2 minutes, to be able to perform the skills at the end of the routine too. So you're training for endurance, but you're also training for power. And it's like this just crazy insanity of a routine.
And then just in general, if you're outside of like being really depleted, maybe it's the beginning of a prep and you're just, getting into that state. What is the level of physical exertion for training your routine? Does it compare to the weight training?
Yes, I would say most definitely. Because obviously training, it's a lot on the body as well, but I personally think the routine takes the most out of me. Which again is why I find it the hardest to train in prep. I think especially because when you're doing full out routines, like you're talking like a 2 minute, like full out routine. And some athletes every athlete's different. Like if you have a dance background, you might not have as many skills. It might be more dance, still very difficult, still exhausting. I like to personally jam pack as many high intensity skills in my routine as I possibly can. I like to try and keep it really fast paced. I want my routine to stand out in that aspect, just keeping that power, keeping that explosiveness and speed throughout. So when you get to that point, yeah, of course, the first 45 seconds, they feel great. Like you're feeling great. And then after that, you start to feel that lactic acid build up. And at that point, it's just trying to get through it, and you want it to be clean too. So training for that, it can be very demanding, because those skills are also, they're not just physically demanding, but it's also like your joints and everything. Like the landings are tough. So especially when you're in a good state, you can control the landings a lot better. When you get to that fatigue state, like for my skills at the end of the routine, my body's taking a lot more, because if I'm not in as great of shape, especially at the beginning when I'm first starting out with the routine, I'm taking a lot of load on my joints for the landings. Obviously, we prep and train to get it to a point where you're in a great shape so that you can last that routine. But it's when you're going full out, you're going to be exhausted by the end, no matter what. So I definitely find it more taxing on my body compared to weight training.
And do you break it up? Will you do like the last quarter or last half or last third or whatever of your routine, so you're in like the better, or at least better physical condition, so you do maximize the skill development?
Yeah. So most of the time, like I'll probably do one time a week where I'm doing like full routine, and I'll honestly probably only do 1 or 2 full out, and then I'll do skill work. The other day I'll do parts. So I'll either break it up into, at the beginning of prep, I'll break it up into like thirds. And then as I'm getting, like my conditioning gets better, I'll break it up into halves. So I might run through 3 of the first half and then 3 of the second half. And then to really kind of push the endurance and the conditioning, sometimes what I'll do is I'll run through the first half and then I'll do shuttle runs, or I'll run through the first half and I'll do some sort of like crazy burpee, like just to like completely exhaust myself. Something like that. Same with the last half. I'll run through the last half and then do shuttle runs or something like that, just to get that extra push.
And how long did it take you to feel comfortable with like knowing how your body is going to respond, during the performance aspect, whether that be in training or in the actual competition aspect, and knowing like, okay, I do feel like this, but I also know that I'm going to be able to do this skill and it's going to go cleanly and like everything's going to work out fine?
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like at like the further I've gotten into my journey, the less like almost like anal I've gotten with myself. Like at the beginning, I was like, okay, I need to make sure I warm up this, and this before I step on stage. Like I needed to run through certain skills, like basically my whole routine. I would run through like not my full out whole routine, but I made sure I did each skill in my routine before getting on stage. Like I felt like I needed that just mentally. But I think I've gotten to a point now that like, I know I can do the skills as long as I'm warmed up properly. I don't necessarily need to exert and exhaust myself before the actual competition. And I can just utilize the visualization, seeing myself perfectly execute, and I can go on stage and do it. I'll still warm up a few of my skills, but it's more just getting warm, utilizing mobility exercises, just making sure my joints are all good. But even like if we're talking not competition day, just kind of in practices, I kind of base on how my body's feeling. So I try not to skip a practice. Obviously, if I'm really, really like I've gotten really in tune with my body, I know when to push, when to pull back. And if it is a day where I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling great, I really don't want to risk injury. Because that's the thing is previous me, younger me would be like, no, I have to push through today's routine practice. I got to do X, Y, and Z. Like I have to get it all done. But I think kind of dropping your ego, letting your ego go, and just really getting in tune with your body, listening to yourself, trusting yourself. Knowing when to push and pull back is huge, because as you get older, injuries can be more prevalent, especially in fitness. So that's one thing I do not want to risk or play around with. So if I'm really feeling off, I'll pull back. So maybe we just do skill work that day. Maybe we focus more on handstand stuff. Maybe we do dance routines. So we're still getting the conditioning, but I'll just take out one or two of my skills that are a little bit more physically demanding or technical, if that makes sense. Just so I don't risk injury. So yeah, I think getting in tune with your body is huge. And then going back to competition day, I used to, again, when I first was starting out, I started to notice that I was feeling better in warm up than I did come the actual performance itself. So I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back because maybe I'm overdoing it in warm up. And you're also at a point, right, where you're carb up a little bit for show day and whatnot, but you're still not adequately eating enough. Your water intake may have been off. So you're not if you're going full out in warm up and then you're sitting and getting cold, waiting to go on, like your body's probably not at an optimal state anymore. You've kind of depleted your stores and whatnot. So I've gotten to this point where I'm like, okay, I gotta just not overdo it. Do what I feel like I need. Like, again, warm my body up in terms of mobility, getting warm, doing one or two skills, test out the stage. But from there, just visualize, making sure I'm staying warm, but again, not overdoing it. Because that's one thing I've learned over the 6 years that I've done this so far.
Do you think that the risk of injury is something that holds a lot of people back from getting into the fitness division?
Holding people back? Yes. I think the main reason, well, two main reasons. I think the main reason fitness is kind of dying. It's not like there's some great athletes right now, don't get me wrong, but it's not as big as it used to be. And one is due to all the like introduction of all the other categories. Two, I think it's because it's so hard. Now that there are all these other different options, athletes are like, why would I do fitness and have to train this whole routine and do all this extra work when I can just go into figure or bikini or whatnot? Because it is very time consuming. Like you dedicate a lot of extra time for fitness. Bodybuilding in general, anybody who bodybuilds, it becomes your life. Like you do sacrifice a lot in the sport in terms of making sure you're prepping all your meals, making sure you get all your training in, all your cardio, posing practice. Like it adds up. You're doing a lot every day to prepare for this event. Now throw in, okay, now you got to train a fitness routine. You got to stay on top of stretching, mobility, extra skill work, because you don't want to plateau and just keep doing the same routine over and over again. You got to level up your skills. So now you got to go and practice new skills. It's all these extra components now that you have to implement. You got to find music, you got to get a costume, there's extra expenses too, right? So especially if you don't have that gymnastics background and you're wanting gymnastics classes and whatnot, so it's financially more, it's time consuming. You really have to love it and have a passion for it to get into fitness. And I think one other reason why it might be not as popular is I think fitness needs to get out more. Like we need more exposure for it. We need to get the word out for gymnasts and cheerleaders and dancers and acrobats, because for me personally, I had no idea what fitness was until my coach was like, you want to do bodybuilding and you're a gymnast, you have to do fitness. And I was like, okay, wait, I've never even heard of this. So I think making it more well-known would do wonders, because I think there are a lot of gymnasts, cheerleaders, whatever, once they finish that sport, again, it's a sport where it's very time consuming and you dedicate your whole life to it. So when that transition out, sometimes it almost feels like you're missing something, because that was me. Yeah, I went into track, I had track, but there was always, it still felt like I'm like, there's something missing. Like I need a challenge. Like I'm that type of, like I'm competitive. Like I need something to push me. I can't just sit around and do nothing. I need that challenge, that physical challenge. So that transition into bodybuilding like really changed my life. Like it just helped elevate all aspects of my life as well, because you just get into this routine and you're surrounded by all these like-minded individuals. The energy's high at competitions. It's just a phenomenal industry as a whole.
I would say for you as well as for just the fitness division in general, do you think that there is a like, what would you say is maybe the ratio of like, the non-fitness bodybuilder may have like let's just say 100%, call it an obsession with the aesthetic part, right? Because that's the only part that they, I mean, obviously in posing and stuff too, but the aesthetic aspect, would you say it's a 50-50 split for fitness because there's obviously the two aspects, or do you think that there's more of a personal obsession for one or the other?
For me personally, I kind of approach and train as if it's 50-50, because both are important. But come show day, the routine is more important. The physique's only 1/3 of your mark, and then the routine is 2/3. So your routine is very important. However, why I say 50-50 in terms of training is the physique round is first. So that's your first impression for the judges. That's their first look at you. So the girls who have better physiques, they're going to be like, okay, I want to watch these girls at final. Like they're going to have that extra eye for them because they've already stood out to them. So I think both are so important. And it used to be a 50-50 split judged back in the past. I can't remember which year they changed it. It's been a couple years now that it's the 30-60% in terms of like the aesthetic physique round and then the routine, but both are important. Like the routine round for me personally is my strong suit, especially because my physique still needs time to mature, especially as a natural athlete. It's a patience game, which is another reason why I love the sport. Is it's a lifelong journey and it's that continual journey. But I still put a huge effort in my routine because one, it is my strength, and two, it is worth 2/3. So I will constantly want to make sure that is ready, looks great, and that it's constantly evolving and improving as well.
At what point for you did you feel like you had the potential to do very well and reach a high level in the sport of bodybuilding?
For me personally, like I always set my goals super high. So as soon as like I saw like the fitness division, as soon as I started researching, like I've watched every fitness routine video I could find on YouTube. Like I hunted down like ones back from like the 1990s, like any video I could get my hands on, I watched, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, I can do this. Like I can get to the Olympia stage. And I didn't really tell anybody my goals at that time because I'm this 19-year-old girl. I've only been training for like a year, like in terms of weight training consistently. And so my coach probably knew, and I was like, I'm going to be on the Olympia stage before I'm 25. Like I was that confident in myself. I didn't want it to come off as like cocky or whatever, but I just envisioned that for myself. I set the goal big. And I was like, I know I can achieve this goal before I'm 25. And I've always been like that. I might keep quiet, but I'll always set the bar high. So I had that confidence in myself. I could get there. I knew I was a long ways away. But I knew that with my work ethic, I could get there if I wanted it bad enough.
And do you think that because you had that kind of longish term plan, knowing that you are still new in it, you haven't been weight training as long, but you think you have this potential and you see, what could be possible, that it led you to do things in a more like a more strategic way?
Yeah, I would for sure say that. Like as soon as I started, like I was like, okay, if we're going to get to this goal, like I got to be 100% committed. Like I have to make sure like that this is my new way of living. Like, and I made sure everything like meal prep, all of that training, like it was consistent. Like I would not miss a training session. And I loved it, but I did it because I loved it. Like a lot of people, they might think, okay, this is crazy. Like you're not really living a really balanced life or anything like that. But does it matter? Like if you're doing what you love and it feels right with you, is it wrong? Like, is it like, who cares if it's not balanced? Maybe it's balanced for me. Maybe this is how I want to live my life. So I think that's huge for people, because a lot of people might not commit or might hold back because of external voices coming at them saying like, this isn't healthy or this isn't right, or, but who's to say like their right is not your right, if that makes sense.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
And do you feel like you had, a lot of people talk about a pro mindset is what flipped the switch for them and is what made them kind of take that extra step and reach that new level? Do you feel like that you had that? It kind of sounds like you had that from the beginning, is that pro mindset?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like, in terms of just like giving 110%, like doing everything in my power that I could control to get there. I will say, and I think this is a huge issue right now, in terms of getting fixated on turning pro and almost like missing out on the journey. So I might get a little off topic here, but when I first started out, it was like pure passion. Like, you know, your why I'm doing this. I love the challenge. I love the journey to the stage. I love the self-growth, that sort of thing. But as you're in the sport, you kind of get sucked in and it's like, I want to turn pro. Like, you get fixated on turning pro. And for me, like my journey, I turned pro at my 6th national. And those 5 nationals beforehand, 4 out of the 5, I was second. So I was runner up to the pro card. So each time it's like that defeat. It's like, oh my gosh, like I'm this close. Like the first time it's one thing, and then you do it's again and again. And it really takes a toll. And I know athletes who have been in that position and they quit because they're like, they just never see that the result they want. And then they end up just quitting. And it's like, okay, but what if you just did one more? Like, you never know. So it's like, I've always followed through with what I was set on, but I did get into a point where I did become fixated and I started to get disappointed. And then after that 5th nationals, this was August 2019, I kind of took a step back and like thought to myself, and I was like, okay, this mindset is not where I want it to be. Like, I'm losing the love for what I want to do. I'm getting fixated on this status, but why am I doing this in the first place? Like, what's my why? I'm doing this because I love it. I love the journey, the self-growth. And yeah, we've missed it 5 times, but this is only going to make me stronger. This is only going to mean more when I do get it. So after that 5th show, I was like, okay, we're going to approach this differently. North Americans was literally, I think it was 2.5 weeks after that 5th show I did. And I was like, I'm not done yet. I feel like I need to just do this for me, to just finish this year on a high note in terms of like just doing it because I love it, going into it and enjoying every single moment, being in the moment, not fixating on the end result. So I ended up switching my entire routine, music. Within those 2 weeks, I was like, I want something brand new. I want just a brand new Abby coming to the stage. And that is such a memorable competition for me, because I just remember like the whole weekend, like just being in the moment, cherishing every moment, spending time with the other athletes, which they were all so amazing too. And it was actually at that point, I think they said it was the biggest show that they've ever had in North America at that time in terms of entry, like athlete entries, which was also pretty cool. And Sandy, the head Olympian judge, was the head judge at that show. So I was like, this is so cool, like just the whole exposure, everything. And I went out and had like one of the best routines I'd ever done. It felt amazing. Like I was in that moment, no expectations, and then ended up getting my pro card at that show. So like, I was like, holy crap, like just total mental switch, was in the moment. And then that's the show I ended up getting it. So I always tell athletes that I'm like, if you want it bad enough and you put in the work, like it will come. Maybe it takes 10 years. Maybe it takes a year. Like every athlete's different and it's your journey. Like everybody's journey is different. So just don't waste your time, like fixating on these results that like haven't even happened, like things that are out of your control that haven't even happened, because you're missing out on enjoying the moment now. Like every moment now, like this show day, like you've worked months and spent hours training for this moment on stage. And if you're so fixated on the end result, you're totally missing the whole experience. You're not living in the now. So that's one thing I try to press to people now, because I went through so many shows where like I feel like I wasn't present during those competitions because of that. So now every show that I do, like that is my mindset going in. I'm like, I'm trying to savor every single moment and just make the most out of it. Doesn't matter what the outcome is. Like if it's meant to be, it will be. The timing will happen when it happens. I'm going to, again, do what's in my control to bring my best self, and just enjoy. Like life's too short.
And do you feel like because you were so close those 4 times that when you finally did turn pro that you were kind of like ready to go, like you were not necessarily like ready to compete like right away, but you felt like, okay, I can compete because I've obviously I've almost been here for a while. So did it give you that confidence to be like, I can actually compete on that next level?
Yes, for sure. Now I did know that my physique had a long way to go, but I knew that my routine was good enough to be competitive in the pro league. And I was actually going to, so I turned pro 2019. There was a show I think I was looking at end of 2020. So like a year later. So I was going to take kind of like a year to kind of grow a little bit and compete. But when COVID hit, it kind of changed my plans a little bit, because being in Canada, we had a little bit more restrictions compared to the States as well. We didn't have gym access for months at a time. Like I would say within a year, we may have had gym access for 2 out of 12 months. Like it was insanity. So it was like, crap, like it's not ideal situation. And then also travel, like we couldn't travel for the longest time. So I was like, I don't want to commit to a show and be heartbroken. If I can't travel or I can't get there, or if it gets canceled. I was like, my best advantage right now is I need to work on my physique. So why not take the time to really build so that when I do hit the pro stage, now I'm a little bit more well balanced in terms of the routine and physique. So we kind of just did that. Like I turned pro end of August 2019, stepped on stage December 2021. And yes, it was an ideal gym situation, but I was fortunate enough to have enough at home to kind of train at a decent intensity. And then routine wise, I invested in like martial arts mats, and my basement has pretty high ceiling. So I ended up just doing my routine in like this tiny little section of my house, just as much as I could, so that when gyms did open up, I was like ready to go, because I think I started my pro debut prep in my basement. And then I think I may have had like 2 months in a gym, 2 or 3 months in the gym right before my pro debut. So it was like, I want to make sure I'm ready to go when the gyms open up. I can be doing full out routines and then get as much as I can leading up into that show.
You know, you mentioned like having those restrictions and what you can't do and all those things that are placed on you from a position that you really have no control over, right? But I think the difference is between like the successful person and the person that's just making the excuses is they find a way to get it done, right? They find a way to do it.
Yes.
Can't go to the gym, but I can still do this thing. I can still, you know, have access to what I have access to. So we're going to make the most out of that. And in those situations, I think too, I don't want to say it's easier to set yourself apart, but it can be easier to set yourself apart because like the majority of people are like, oh, well, I can't do anything, so I won't do anything. And then if you are even capable of doing something, you're already going to be ahead of those people.
100%. And honestly, like I think those lockdowns were a blessing in disguise for me, because I'm the type of person who's like constantly like go, go, go. Like I don't have time to just like, it's important, I know, but I'm very bad at just like letting myself just like that downtime. But during those like months off, because you kind of have to strategize your training and whatnot a little bit different, I ended up getting really big into like handstand work. Like I was a gymnast, I could handstand whatnot, but for those like couple months during summer, I would spend like hours because I had nothing else to do. I couldn't work because most of my jobs, they were canceled because of the restrictions. So I would spend hours outside, just like on like my patio deck doing handstands, and I improved like the hand balancing skills so much. And that was a huge asset for my routine. And that's one of my biggest strengths for my routines now. And I get compliments from some judges in terms of like certain handstand stuff that I do. So I was like, holy crap, like that was, yeah, it sucked, but I did gain something from that. And I was able to improve a huge part of my routine to kind of help stand out a little bit in that aspect. So yeah, I think it's how you approach with the cards that you've been dealt. The cards that you've been dealt, what are you gonna do? You can boo-hoo this, like, my life sucks, like, you can go that route, or you can be like, okay, this might not be ideal, but what can I gain from it? How can I approach this differently? If there's a will, there's a way. There's always a way that you can get something done, and improve and grow. So just depends on that mindset. Like, that mindset is key.
Talk a little bit about your Olympia experience, as far as obviously just having like the ability to qualify, of course, and then, how things kind of transpired after that.
Okay. So that whole year, like, I was so set on getting my Olympia qualification. Like, I would have competed in every show just to try, like I was like, I know I'm going to qualify this year. Like, I know this is my year. And I told you, like, my goal was to qualify before the age of 25. So I ended up, I was 24 at this past Olympia. So I was like, I'm going to qualify. So when I won the Vancouver Pro Show, like, that was an overwhelming emotion that I did not, like, I knew I would be emotional, but like I cried on stage. Like, still to this day, I think that is one of the most incredible feelings I will have ever felt. Apart from the Olympia itself, that was like a moment I will cherish and remember forever. And then from that moment forward, I was like full tunnel vision, full flow state leading into the Olympia. And I ended up doing one more show leading up as well, just because I love to compete. So I did the Ben Weider end of September, I think it was. Yeah, end of September. And then the Olympia was beginning of December. But I think that time, like, from Vancouver on, was like the most like tunnel vision flow state I've ever been in. Like, I'm talking like routine was like spot on, like day to day. Like, it was like 4:15 a.m. like wake up, I'd go do my cardio. Like, I would set like my affirmations for the day, go do my cardio, pose, core work, get all that done first thing in the morning. 7:20, I'm leaving the gym, classes at 8 a.m., go to classes, back to the gym, weight training or routine practice, whatever it was. It was just like clockwork, day in, day out. Just seeing this goal. Like, I was so like, it almost does, like you said, like, it becomes an obsession. It does. But it felt so right. Like, I woke up, like, it's freaking 4 a.m. Like, who does this? And I'm waking up, I'm like, let's go. We've got work to do. So like that whole journey to that stage, like, that probably one of my favorite preps outside of like my very first show, like very similar feelings, like just doing everything in my power. And then the Olympia experience itself was everything I imagined and more. Like, again, I would visualize everything, but just actually be there and experience it and share the stage with athletes that I've looked up to. Like, when I said I first started researching fitness routine videos, the first ever routine I ever watched was Ariel Kadar. Like, it was one of her routines at the Toronto Pro. And I remember watching her routine. I was like, this is so amazing. I want to be like her one day, like, in my own individualistic way, but like, I want to be badass like this, because this is so cool. So to share the stage with her, like, and she knows, like, I still stay in touch with her, and like, it was an unbelievable experience. It's crazy, because you almost idolize these girls when you're first starting out. You're like, holy crap, they're phenomenal. Like, I want to be like them one day. And then to actually be there and like you're sharing the stage with them, it's just unreal. But besides from that, like, it's just, you're surrounded by like all these like-minded individuals. Like I said, like, the show environments are just indescribable. Like, you almost feel at home. Like, you're just, the energy in the room is just, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just like that high frequency energy, and you just feel good. But then to experience that at the Olympia, it's just like, it was like elevated beyond measure. So like, I'm trying to stay like calm, keep my composure, but like still like just take it all in and be in the moment. But there was just so much that happens throughout, and to like be on that stage, because you have like the pre-judging stage, which was in a different venue. It was at the Venetian, and then Planet Hollywood was like the final stage. And that stage, oh my gosh, like, it was like on like any other stage I've ever been on. Like, it was huge, like smoke coming out like during your entrance, like lights flashing, like it was like a whole production. So it's like, holy crap, like, I actually did that. Like, I was on the Olympia stage. it was like, I still like think I'm like, did that happen? Like, was that real?
Did it feel weird to be so young and be in that environment?
Yeah, you know what? A little bit. Like, definitely, I know it's not common. But I also did still feel like I belonged. Like, I did feel like I belonged. All the fitness girls are so phenomenal too. Like, it really is like this awesome community, of just supportive athletes. So I didn't feel too much that it was weird, but I know that it's not normal. Like, most people my age at that point, like, they're like in university or partying or whatnot, like they're off enjoying life, and I'm like tunnel vision, like eating fish and whatever, like 5 times a day, like doing a crazy amounts of cardio and training. Like, my life is literally in a gym for this one moment on stage, but so worth it.
You talked about having like looking up to these people, right? Especially in fitness, because that's, the division you're in. But do you ever think about like the fact that people are looking up to you as well because you're at this high level?
I think the Olympia really kind of opened my eyes to that, because I do have like girls, whether they're just getting into fitness and whatnot, and they'll reach out to me and I'm like, holy crap, like I could be making an impact, or like these girls are like looking up to me now, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, it feels like that's still me. Like, I'm still looking up to other athletes. So to kind of start to experience that, I'm like, holy crap, like I can be a big influence. So definitely a different mindset switch, but like my goal is like I want to like be a voice for fitness. Like, I want to inspire as many people as I can, help as many people as I can. So like, I love when people reach out, because I love like just talking fitness, talking body, like any whatever it is, and just helping in any way that I can. Like, I will 100% do that, because I think this sport is so phenomenal. And I think a lot of athletes are also scared to reach out sometimes to these like Olympians or whatnot, or just bigger individuals in the sport, because they're intimidated or whatnot. But I'm like, no, like reach out. Like, you can learn and gain so much information from us. Like, it's truly amazing. And I just, yeah, that's my goal. One of my goals is to ultimately help as many people as I can, and hopefully inspire. And yeah, because it is a phenomenal sport, and you can grow, and it can really change your life. So,
And was there an added level or element of responsibility when you kind of understood that like people are looking up to you and watching you?
yeah, for sure. I think there does come that added responsibility for sure. But at the same time, like, I'm always going to stay true to myself, stay true to my authentic self, do what's right for me. And if that can inspire somebody, amazing. But I do, yeah, like, you got to act a certain way, and be this light for people. Like, I'm not going to go online and just complain about having a bad day. Like, everyone goes through that. Like, yeah, I think it's good to show that we go through bad days and whatnot, but there's different ways you can approach that. And you can approach it almost like that whining, complaining way, or you can come on and just be more of an inspiration and say, bad days are normal. Like, you're going to go through days, like ruts, where you don't feel like doing it, but those are the days where I'm going to push through. I'm going to utilize this to grow more. If I can get through this day, I can get through any day, sort of thing. So I think there's different ways that you can approach different situations that aren't necessarily fake. Like, I'm not faking saying that I don't go through a bad day, because I'm not complaining about it, but you don't have to complain about it. You can still address something, but turn it into this motivational or uplifting light kind of way, I guess, if that makes sense, to inspire and say, yeah, bad days are normal, or yeah, maybe training, you're in a rut, or maybe you get this injury. Yeah, like, it sucks, but you can always utilize that to grow more or gain something from it. I think just turning into like a more positive outlook, is huge. So that's what I want to be for people. Like, I want to show that everything, again, we're turning back to this mental aspect of the sport, but it's so mental. It's how you approach, and it's not just bodybuilding, it's how you approach everything in life. You can either complain, or you can look, what am I gaining? What am I going to grow from this? Like, there is a positive in any situation, whether it's something horrible or not. Like, it's the way that you twist it, turn it, look at it, you can gain something, you can grow as an individual.
How has this season been for you? Like what's going on? How, what's the plans? And then kind of moving into the future, what does the future look like for you, do you think?
Oh boy. Okay. So this has been the longest break away from the stage since COVID for me. Like, I'm the type of athlete who I like to step on stage a lot. Like, I love it. Competing, like, is something that I just enjoy. I love going up and performing for people. I'm super passionate about it, so I love to compete often. So like when I was amateur, I did 9 shows within the span of like 2 years or something like that. And then even like my pro debut year from December 2021 to December 2022, I did 5 shows. So I like to compete a lot. So, but I did understand, I was like, I need to grow still. Like, I need to improve this physique, especially as a natural athlete. You've got to take time and really put in work to grow. So after the Olympia, like, that's what we've been doing since. I did switch coaches. I have a new coach for this season. So that's something new that I'm experiencing right now. So I am in prep right now. It's a little bit of a different approach in terms of the nutrition aspect. So I'm just trying to like trust and just not overthink anything, because I'm eating more than I'm used to, and I'm like, it feels weird. So I'm like, is this right? So I have a new coach. I'm also coaching for that that coaching team. So that's kind of why I'm having him coach. So that's a new aspect. So I'm taking on more clients now. And I'm preparing for 2 shows end of year. For sure, the Ben Weider, which is mid-November. So that's the Natural Pro Show in Virginia. And also the Night of Championships, I think it's called. That one's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That one only has Pro Fitness, I'm pretty sure. So that's one that's been on my bucket list. I think they've only had it 1 year. So that one's end of October. So that one's coming up. So the plan is to do both of those. If I'm ready for Chattanooga, I'm going to start with that one. If not, for sure, Ben Weider. And the goal is to qualify for Olympia 2024. So the goal is to qualify with one of those 2 shows, but I also do want to do some in spring. So we're going to do a couple shows in the springtime as well. So that's kind of my plan competing wise. So the ultimate goal, Olympia, I want to get back on the Olympia stage 2024. I'm a little crazy, like long term, like I would love to be on the Olympia stage 10 plus times. Like, as long as I'm still loving it. If I'm enjoying it, which I think I can't see how I would not, I want to like be up there like minimum 10 times. Like, that's kind of like the number I have in my head. But again, we'll see where life goes and whatnot. Get invited for the Arnolds. That's another goal of mine. And then, yeah, just continuing to inspire people, compete, like continue to love to compete, like bring my passion to the stage, improve, like just constantly improve and grow. Like, that's all I can ask for. I'm in terms of school, I'll be graduating May 2025. So I still have a little bit of time left for school. But the goal will be to kind of blend the online coaching, working with bodybuilding athletes outside of bodybuilding, lifestyle clients, and then also incorporating chiropractic care on the side as well, kind of starting my own practice, but doing it more of like a part-time thing. That's kind of my ultimate goal. There's some other little things here and there too, but we'll keep that kind of under wraps for now. But that's like kind of long-term type projection, I guess you could say.
It was great getting to chat with you tonight. I really appreciate you coming on here, and best of luck with your stuff moving forward.
Thanks, Daniel. It was awesome getting to talk to you.
It was really good. And if you want to share your social media or anything like that, you can go ahead and do that.
For sure. So my Instagram is Abby Bolton _ IFBB Pro. And then I do have some sponsors. So Devoteewear, it's a clothing company based out of Vancouver. So you can use code Bolton10 for that. BioX Performance Nutrition Supplement Company, phenomenal. You can use code Bolton15 for that. And then I'm also sponsored with Absolute Touch Tanning. They've always done a phenomenal job for me. I trust nobody else besides them. And then also KH Customs for suits. She is phenomenal. So yeah,